Hey, Diana, are we ready to go? I'm not hearing you, so
Oh, okay. Are we ready?
just wanted to
Do
make
you?
sure that you weren't talking muted.
No. Um, so can you see my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
All
we can see
right.
it.
Thank you. Um, so this presentation is about sensitive natural communities. And first, I'd like to thank Julie Evans, my co-producer, and Todd Keeler-Wolf, who provided all of the photographs you'll see in this presentation, including this one of Idaho fescue, blue bunch wheatgrass, and pine bluegrass alliance, which is considered a sensitive natural community. We use this term sensitive for rare vegetation types to avoid the legal term rare, which in California is used for some plants. It also aligns with the wording in CEQA, and natural communities is a term that historically has been used by natural heritage programs such as the California Natural Diversity Database. So in this presentation, we'll answer these three questions. How are natural communities ranked for rarity to determine if they are sensitive? What are the implications of ranking, and where can you find ranking information? I'm not going to dive too much into detail in this short presentation because we're planning to do a more detailed webinar in the future if you're interested. So the first question is, how are communities ranked? We previously ranked them based on expert opinion as to the extent of the community and number of occurrences. As we have mapped more and more of the state, we have increasing information on the distribution of threats to the communities. So in the last several years, we've been using Natureserve's ranking methodology. This provides standardization of the process for ranking species and communities globally, that is, over the entire range, and subnationally, that is, by state. And as Rochelle says, we don't do the global ranking. We only know what's going on in California. This methodology is the same that is used by CNDDB to rank plants and animals. It also has been vetted across different taxa and ecosystems to provide accurate and consistent rankings. Here you see the factors considered in ranking: the range and area occupied, the number of occurrences, the number of viable occurrences, and how specific the taxon is to a certain environment. Sorry, this thing is like advancing for some reason. It also considers threats and short and long-term trends if known. So Natureserve has incorporated their ranking methodology into a rank calculator in the form of an Excel spreadsheet. Here's a summary page of the calculator using little white Navarisha, Q6 popcorn flower, vernal pool alliance, and I don't want you to get into details or try to look at this, but I really want you to see that it actually is a calculator that takes inputs, weights them, and then spits out a rarity rank from 1 to 5. This sheet records the range, number, and viability of occurrence of the community, which account for 70% of the ranking weight. It also summarizes threats, which account for 30% of the ranking weight. Ranks range from 1 to 5, where 1 means the community is at very high risk of extirpation due to either a very restricted range, very few populations or occurrences, or very steep declines, severe threats, or other factors. Rank 5 is at very low or no risk of extirpation to a very extensive range, abundant or invasive populations or occurrences, and little or no threats. We consider ranks 1 through 3 to be sensitive, while ranks 4 and 5 are not. So here's an example of the background work that is necessary for the range, areal extent, and number of occurrences. This map shows the 9 occurrences of the Navarisha leucocephala subspecies minima, Plagiobothries cusickii vernal pool alliance. within the mapping area, which total 107 acres. The occurrences are in pink and they're widely buffered so that you can see where they are, though you would not be able to see them at the scale if they were drawn the actual size. The range extends from south of Lake Tahoe to the Oregon border, and in our case, no further because we're only doing the state rank. It has been drawn to include all the known and suspected occurrences of the type based on literature review, other sampling, and potentially on observations of the dominant species from sources such as CalFlora. The calculator has a page to document threats in 11 major categories, such as residential and commercial development, agriculture and aquaculture, transportation, service corridors, biological resource use, and climate change and severe weather. An overall threat is calculated based on the number, scope, and severity of threats. This is then combined with the rarity and range information to estimate the overall rank. Each rarity rank is discussed and agreed to by both VegCamp and the CNPS Vegetation Program ecologists, and we archive this rank calculator and also the spatial data so that they can be reviewed by others. The comment fields are helpful for providing more detail or references as to why we made certain decisions. And we've started to get outside peer review of the rarity ranks. For example, Kyle Merriam helped review the ranking factors for this vernal pool type. And we are working on a process in order to get outside peer review. So the top section of this slide lists the new alliances from this project and their ranks. The bottom section lists previously known alliances that have updated ranks. Note here that new information from this project resulted in rankings of less rare for the first and third of the shrub types listed at the bottom there, and more rare for the second. And this is just based on new information from this project. So ranks do change. As Rochelle said, Appendix A in the report lists types found in the mapping area. And they include 4 new alliances, 2 of which are sensitive, and 28 new associations, 22 of which are sensitive. And to Denny's question, we haven't completed ranking of all the types in the Modoc project, but we are going to use the rank calculator on the new associations from this project. So here are some photos of sensitive types in the Modoc project area. The first is the Modoc, the Mountain Mahogany Mountain Big Sagebrush Association. This one is interesting because we also have an association of the mountain mahogany with another subspecies of sagebrush, Artemisia tridentata, which is described from desert ecosystems and has a different suite of species associated with it. This is a newly described association for California and can be found at higher elevations within the study area and is typically found adjacent to white fir or yellow pine stands. Here's an example of low sagebrush pine bluegrass association. This association is found at lower elevations in the study area. Don't know why that keeps happening. All right, have no idea. It's only going forward.
It's only going forward. Oh no.
Okay. Yeah, I have no idea.
Huh.
Yeah. It's found in smectite clay soils that crack and swell throughout the year depending on precipitation. It can have a very diverse herbaceous layer, as you can see here, but the stands are susceptible to invasive annual grasses with disturbance by grazing and fire. This is the big black sagebrush, or the Black Sagebrush Pine Bluegrass Association. Stands of Artemisia nova alliance are the driest habitats. of all the Artemisia-dominated alliances, the alliance is sensitive, which makes this association the only association documented in the project area so far, also sensitive. There's the Ocean Spray or Ironwood Association, which is found in small stands, typically on rock outcrops and talus slopes. The Tansy Leaf Evening Primrose Poverty Weed Provisional Association in the Navaricia leucocephala subspecies minima Plagiobratharis cusickii alliance. This is called provisional because it hasn't been sampled at least 10 times. We expect that there are more stands of this in the project area, but it's likely still very restricted in range and thus is considered sensitive. Yes. These tend to occur in areas disturbed by livestock or from tilling seasonally saturated soils, but they do contain vernal pool endemic species that are restricted to this region, such as Pachygolupes downingia. And here is a sample of the map south of Pine Creek on the likely tableland, showing some of the sensitive natural communities. And later, Rosie will be showing you how to use or ArcGIS to show rare communities in your area of interest. The second question we want to answer is, what are the implications of the rarity ranks? So CDFW's protocols for assessing impacts to plant species and natural communities call for disclosing impacts to sensitive natural communities, which are those, as I said, listed as S1, S2, or S3, similar to sensitive plant species as determined by CNDDB. Here are some of the laws and regulations that apply to sensitive communities, which we will go over in more detail in the future webinar that we're going to be putting on. In general, however, there is no equivalent to state or federal Endangered Species Acts for natural communities, but there are some requirements to disclose impacts to them, and depending on the lead agency, mitigate impacts to them. CEQA is probably the most widely used, but even some county general plans have ordinances requiring avoidance of some sensitive communities. I think the strongest is probably in the coastal zone, which doesn't apply on the Modoc, but sensitive communities are considered environmentally sensitive habitat areas and need to be avoided. So the third question is, where can you find ranking information for natural communities? And VegCamp's website has a PDF and Excel versions of the entire list, a list that includes only the sensitive types, and a list of recent changes and additions, all ordered alphabetically by scientific name within life form. The global and state ranks are provided when we have them for alliances and for some associations. Right now, the associations mostly are either yes or a no. This excerpt and the photo show the Ariagonum Poa-Secunda Alliance. The GNR means that the global distribution has not been ranked since this alliance extends into neighboring states. Note that because the alliance has a state rank of 3, all of its associations are marked yes for sensitive, even though they may not have been ranked yet. This is because all of the occurrences within all the occurrences of the associations within the alliance are considered when determining the ranking for the alliance. As Rosie will show, the ranks are also an attribute in the vegetation layer, and as Rochelle said, descriptions of the alliances are in the project report, and alliance descriptions and ranks are also found in the Manual of California Vegetation online. So here's the current extent of classification and mapping within California. You can see that both the classification and the rarity rankings will likely change as we learn more and complete mapping and classifying the state. And that's just a short intro. I'm sorry about the slide problem, and I hope that wasn't too distracting. At least it wasn't as distracting to you as it was to me. So as I said, we'll be working on a more detailed webinar if you're interested.
Well, there's definitely time for questions if there are any.
I don't see any queued up, but I will.
Yeah, let's look for questions. The one thing I was thinking, Diana, Rosie, if we have a few minutes, maybe we can show people the online MCV. Just show them where those rarity ranks might be found for the alliances, but I see Kendra Mosley has a question.
Yeah, Kendra has a question.
I only have a comment. I was trying to write in the chat box and kept getting an error. So I don't know if others are having that same issue, but
oh no.
Yeah, I was going to comment to Michael that I was hoping that maybe some of my talk would address his question, but I wasn't able to get it to work. So I just wanted to let you know.
Is anybody else having that problem? You can raise your hand or just say. Jennifer just tested it. Thank you, Jen. No test.
No problem here.
Thanks, Todd.
Maybe it just doesn't like me.
Okay, well, you can always email a question to me, Rochelle Bull. So Rochelle Bull at wildlife.ca.gov. If you can't put a question, and if for some reason your little raised hand isn't being seen. Okay.
So yeah, why don't we go ahead? I will start sharing my screen, and we can go we can just take a quick look at a couple of things. So this is CNPS's Manual of California Vegetation Online. And so if you type in an alliance name, so I'm just going to type in Ariaga and get that one that Diana was showing there. You can go to the alliance, and it has a nice description of characteristic species, the vegetation layers, membership rules. This membership rule is actually from the classification Rochelle just described. It shows the CA code, and then over here show the rarity ranks and the distribution, if it's endemic to California, and there's a lot more that you can see for each alliance, and then like management considerations, and then there's the list of associations that go under there, and references, and this is for every alliance in the state. And then I'll just show briefly, Rochelle mentioned that you can get all the reports on our webpage. This is the home page for us. If you just type VegCamp into a search engine, we come up pretty quickly. If we go to our reports and maps page, this is where we have our reports. I'm going to be showing off some of the map features later, but you can see it's organized by general region. And then also, let's see if it's up the top or the bottom. These are reports that VegCamp was involved in, but some of the classification reports for the state were produced solely by CNPS or sometimes others. And so for other reports, there's a link down here at the bottom that will take you to our program documents, and we've tried to make sure that when we get a good classification report, we put it in here, and you can search for an area that you're interested in, or a report that you saw, say in the MCV, to see if you can actually find that report if you don't find it on a page. I don't know if there are any more questions about that, or if anybody else wants to say something.
Yeah, that was great, Rosie. Thanks for doing that. I just wanted to point out that as Rosie said, that the online MCV is alliance level information, and it's for all the alliances described in the state. So for more detailed information within this project area that we're focusing on today, you definitely would want to look at the classification report that I showed you all, and that will also, like I said, give association level information too.
We have a comment from Julie, if you would show where to access sensitive natural community lists from VegCamp page.
Sure. Yeah, so let's go back. So we have a natural community page, and on this it describes how we look at natural communities, which is using the National Vegetation Classification System. It describes special stands, and then kind of a definition and history of sensitive natural communities and how they've been treated. And then here are the lists that Diana mentioned, and we could just take a quick look at one. So this is how those lists kind of appear in PDF format, and you can see that we also publish recent changes. We have all of the natural communities, whether or not they're sensitive, and then we have a list that's just the sensitive natural communities. And then there's a section about addressing sensitive natural communities and environmental review. So yeah, so why don't we take another little break? And
John Menke has a question.
Oh, John Menke's got a question. Great.
Hi, John. Are you there? We don't hear you.
Well, maybe he took a break.
Or if you're on your phone, John, you'd want to press *6 to unmute yourself.
Yeah, *6.
Can't hear you, John. Maybe you can email me your question if you can't type it for some reason.
Yeah, I posted in the chat, and if we get the question, we'll address that first. But for right now, why don't we take another 5-minute break and get back to it at 10:30?
Great.